Welcome to Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. And currently, I have both monitor and output set for my microphone, which means it's going to get weird. There we go. Your old pal Jake, and on the show on this 2 for Tuesday, we are looking at actual consequences for somebody associated with the GOP committing a crime. Very strange. We are also looking at the utter lack of consequences for everybody else. And, of course, what you have to be in order to be punished for your crimes in the United States if you are a member of the GOP and you committed a crime. So, first up, my girl, Rachel Maddow, had a crush on that lady for years, and unfortunately it will forever be unfulfilled because she is very much married. But that's okay. She still does great reporting, and or rather, she does great commentary on reporting. And here she is talking about the arrest of a GOP political candidate. Let's have a look.
We're going to start tonight with some breaking news on a story that we first brought you this time last week when it was just emerging. This may have been the only place you've heard about it in the national news, but as luck would have it, we brought you this story for the first time a week ago at this time. It's a story out of New Mexico, and just tonight as we are getting on the air, there is a major development in that story tonight, and it is a shocking one. I imagine, given these new developments in this story, this will not be the only place you will be hearing about this over the next several days.
Hope not.
All right. What we were able to tell you last week was news of a spate of recent shootings in New Mexico that had targeted the homes and offices of at least a half dozen elected officials in New Mexico, all of them members of the Democratic Party. Now, no one was injured in these shootings.
Yeah, but let me just point something out. Remember the definition of terrorism. It's violence or the threat of violence in order to achieve political ends. You do not get you don't get a more classic example of that than shooting the homes of politicians. Trying to get them to shut up, trying to get them to vote different, trying to get them to do yada, yada, yada. Shooting the homes of politicians is straight up terrorism. I sure hope these people weren't funded by anybody who was trying to be in the government.
These shootings hit buildings, not people. But they apparently had all been targeted at Democratic politicians during December and January. So just over the last few weeks. And we first learned of the shootings at 5 homes and offices belonging to some county commissioners and 2 state senators and New Mexico's newly elected Democratic Attorney General. Then we learned that there had also been an additional shooting at the house of the incoming Speaker of the New Mexico State Legislature. We've since learned some additional details about these shootings targeting individual Democratic politicians. And it's alarming. It's not an individual pot shot here and there. For example, on December 4th, it was 8 shots that were fired into the home of one Democratic county commissioner in New Mexico. That was December 4th. Then on December 11th, it was 12 bullets that were fired into the home of a county commissioner. Again, this is all in New Mexico. They're all Democrats. So again, December 4th, at one politician's home, he's a county commissioner, 8 shots fired into his home. A week later, December 11th, 12 bullets fired into the home of another Democratic county commissioner. Then on January 3rd, it was a state representative, a Democratic state representative named Linda Lopez in New Mexico. On January 3rd,
terrorist attacks.
Shots rang out at her house. 3 bullets went through her daughter's bedroom as her 10-year-old daughter was inside that bedroom asleep.
I just really want you to appreciate the state that the USA is in right now. 3 terrorist attacks on Democratic politicians. The inaction of the American justice system when it comes to the crimes of conservatives has resulted in this. That's where this came from. It's not random. It didn't crop up suddenly. It's been ramping up. The kid gloves conservatives get treated with have resulted in generations that simply think the law isn't supposed to apply to them. But they've gotten organized. They've gotten somehow bolder in the time of Trump because Trump so blatantly breaks the law. And they have seen what doesn't happen to him, which is any consequences. So now, coupling that with his constant rhetoric that, ooh, Dems are coming to get you. Now we have this. We ought to make that rhetoric at least partially true. People that vote Dem should be coming to get you. The difference between us is our morality. We do things legally. We must insist our Justice Department take this seriously. We do have some good news in this story. Tell them, Rachel.
So that's three of them, December 4th, December 11th, January 3rd. But all in all, it ended up being 6 different Democratic officials who appear to have been targeted. Initially 2 county commissioners, then a state representative, then a state attorney general, and then a state senator. So 6 shootings altogether, again, all targeting Democratic Party officials in New Mexico. Tonight, Albuquerque police have announced that they have made an arrest in these shootings. And I said this is sort of shocking news. The reason it is shocking news is because the man they have arrested and charged is a Republican candidate for a state house seat in last year's elections. He was the Republican nominee for a state legislative election this past November, Albuquerque's House District 14. His name is Symone Pena. He lost that election by more than 3,600 votes to the incumbent Democrat who holds that seat.
I wonder how they handled that loss. Do you think they, this person who clearly is a big Trump person, do you think they had dignity and said, well, the people in my district have spoken. I'm sorry that they didn't believe in. Well, let's just get to it. You know what's coming.
Mr. Pena was an unusual candidate. There was a local write-up on his candidacy in the Santa Fe New Mexican in August that noted that Symone Pena, despite being the Republican nominee for this state legislative seat, he was a convicted felon many times over. He'd been convicted, in fact, of...
Remember George Santos. The Republican Party does not care about the quality of their candidates because they don't care about the quality of their legislation. It's a criminal party. If we are not witnessing the end of America, then we are witnessing the end of the Republican Party.
19 different felonies, including burglary, larceny, contributing to the delinquency of a minor, and receiving stolen property. As a result of those multiple felony convictions, he spent almost 7 years in prison. But then the Republican Party picked him to be their nominee for this state legislature seat in Albuquerque. Again, he made it to the general election as the Republican nominee. He lost the election to the Democrat incumbent. But now police allege, announcing his arrest today, that he hired people to shoot at some of these Democratic officials' homes and offices.
Now, I appreciate Rachel Maddow, and I appreciate the journey I have seen her take over the last few years. I think what she does, her style of reporting on these events, is to explain them in granular detail. When you're making fun of Rachel Maddow, the most common joke you hear is she'll tell a story about what happened yesterday and be like, so during the founding of America, there was actually a disagreement about, and then work up to yesterday's news. And in doing so, I think her own understanding of the systems at work here has increased and has allowed her to see the strings getting pulled, so to speak. And I think that's had a very negative effect on her personal life. She seems to be getting more and more frazzled, but a very positive effect on her show. Anyway, all that is to say, I do appreciate Rachel Maddow, but I do feel it's necessary to do a little corporate media translation here. What she just said is a lot of words for saying funded terrorists. I'll go back a little bit.
But now police allege, announcing his arrest today, that he hired people,
paid them,
to shoot at some of these Democratic officials' homes and offices.
To attack another political party. Paid them to intimidate lawmakers. He's a terrorist, funding a terrorist cell. What that is. Assuming the man is convicted, assuming, yep, that is what he did and that is why he did it. Yeah. Be clear about that, Rachel Maddow.
In a press conference just tonight, Albuquerque officials say that Solomon Pena pulled the trigger himself at least one of the shootings.
Ooh.
But they also made clear that they have evidence connecting this candidate to 4 of the 6 shootings that they've been investigating, while the other 2 are still under investigation. Again, this is just a remarkable development in this story. The lead in the Albuquerque Journal tonight is this. The Albuquerque Police Department has arrested Solomon Pena, an unsuccessful Republican candidate for the House District 14 seat, in connection with the shootings at local Democratic politicians' homes. Chief Harold Medina said Pena, an unsuccessful legislative candidate in the 2022 election, is accused of conspiring with and paying 4 other men to shoot at the homes of 2 county commissioners and 2 state legislators. Again, that shows that they're connecting him to 4 of the 6 shootings that they've been investigating. They're saying that they are not connecting him and these men they believe he hired to the other 2 shootings. They have not yet connected him to those other 2, but those 2 other shootings remain under investigation. Here was Albuquerque's mayor speaking tonight after the arrest was announced.
This situation today, I think, obviously points out that these shootings were orchestrated. They were dangerous attacks, not only to these individuals, which is personally the most terrifying for them, but fundamentally also to democracy. That is why
I do love when you get a small town politician, particularly one that isn't convinced that one day they're going to be president, because you will get frank talk. And I enjoy that.
Why this is so terrible. This type of radicalism is a threat to our nation, and it has made its way to our doorstep right here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. But I know here we are going to push back, and we will not allow this to cross the threshold. Fundamentally,
just real quick, the man said, but, so this has made its way to our doorstep. This radicalism exists in America. It made its way to our doorstep, but here we are going to push back. Excellent. I love to hear that, first of all, and the implication is that there is no pushback elsewhere, and he's right. Never thought I would say this sentence, but I'm a big fan of the mayor of Albuquerque, New Mexico. No offense to Albuquerque, New Mexico. I just didn't think our paths would ever cross in the media landscape, but here we are. You have a great mayor.
At the end of the day, this was
case.
About a right-wing radical, an election denier who was arrested today, and someone who did the worst imaginable thing you can do when you have a political disagreement, which is turn that to violence.
Again, that's the Albuquerque mayor speaking tonight after
Keller's a killer. I love it.
The arrest of this Republican state legislative candidate was announced by Albuquerque police. Again, police say that they believe he pulled the trigger in at least one of these shootings targeting the homes and offices of Democratic elected officials, and they believe he conspired with and paid 4 other men to fire into the homes of county commissioners and state legislators. Now, you heard the mayor there reference this was about a right-wing radical, an election denier who was arrested today. What that references, I believe, are the frequent public statements, online social media statements by this Republican candidate.
Real quick, just because I'm so reminded of Santos, I'm curious at what point this corruption is going to overlap enough that we have new crimes. So we already have really pathetic election funding laws, but even worse, we have terrible monitoring of them, so that somebody like Santos can get elected, and only after that do we start asking, where did he get the $700,000 to donate to his own campaign? Only after he's elected. Okay. If you have somebody then like this, a candidate who has been radicalized by the terrorist preaching of Donald Trump and all MAGA politicians, I'm curious to know where he got the money to hire this group of henchmen that shot up Democratic lawmakers' homes. I'm curious to know where these drive-bys were funded. I'm sure it's just that he's a small business owner, this or that or the other thing, something like that. But if we don't stop this, eventually we're going to get to the point where we're going to have to ask some serious questions. Santos had a lot of his funding come from a Russian oligarch. And the Russian oligarch paid him, and then Santos started giving pro-Russian talking points, trying to stop the America helping Ukraine as it's getting invaded by Russia. What would happen if another oligarch paid this guy in Albuquerque, and then that guy used his campaign funds to hire these terrorists? Is it already funding terrorism in America if the only terrorists that Russia funds are stochastic terrorists, like, say, Marjorie Taylor Greene? We're going to have to ask these questions. How are we going to respond to Russia funding terrorists in the U.S.? Those are uncomfortable questions. Those are questions with some rather serious implications. If we'd like to avoid having to ask those questions, a great way to go about it would be to take MAGA seriously as a criminal organization. Take the GOP seriously as a criminal organization. They are, at this point, just a network of criminals or people that professionally cover up for criminals, and another word for those people are also criminals. There are not many Ted Lieu's remaining in the GOP. The longer we put this off, the uglier it gets. Let's let Rachel finish.
Maintaining that he didn't actually lose this election in which he was the Republican candidate this past November. Again, the Republican Party nominated him to be their candidate for the state legislative seat out of Albuquerque in November. He lost by a large margin, by more than 3,500 votes. Since then, he has maintained that he didn't really lose and the election was rigged against him. Local coverage of his candidacy has noted that he is in the words of the Santa Fe, New Mexican, a, quote, gushing supporter of former President Donald Trump. And he appears to have emulated Trump in rejecting the results of the election that he lost.
Yeah, he appears to have emulated Trump in rejecting these results of the election that he lost, making sexual comments about his own daughter wearing a diaper. Just no idea why people think this is a role model.
But police in Albuquerque...
Actually, nothing wrong with wearing a diaper, but don't sexualize your own daughter.
Tonight say he went much further than that, accusing him tonight, formally charging him with having pulled the trigger himself and led a conspiracy with 4 other men to shoot into the homes of other Democratic officials. So again, this is
wild. Absolutely wild. But predictable as well. The Republican Party, for the smart ones, has been just a fraud organization, really, for like 30 years. Just been a way to trick people that don't follow politics all that closely into passionately supporting people that are funded by major corporations, and their job is to relieve those corporations of any obligation to supporting America, to utterly get rid of their taxes. And then their job became to also be insurance for those corporations, so that if the corporation ever runs out of money, they can just dip into the American bank. Funny enough, I don't even know if you call that capitalism. At a certain point, they're just pro-monarchy, right? They're just trying to make a different monarchy. Oh well. That's changed, though. Because for the simpletons who got into office, who are in this party, now they're like a dog that's just realizing that it's been off its leash for a few minutes. Any crime goes. It doesn't matter how bad it is, as long as you say you're Republican. Now, you have to be powerful enough. You have to have enough of a platform. Apparently, you can't be a failed Republican candidate for office. Can't do that. You have to successfully get into office, like Matt Gaetz. Then, the fact that he appears to have paid a 17-year-old for sex, literally engaged in child prostitution, that doesn't get punished. So you do have to get into office still. But I'm sure they're working on it. I'm sure as long as you declare yourself to be part of the Taliban, the Republican Party, then in the near future, at the rate we're going, then that will mean that you're automatically immune from all criminal punishment. That, or we could start taking this seriously. What can you do about it? You can complain to the Department of Justice. Start at the top. Trump needs to be under arrest. Now, immediately. Tonight. A year ago. 2 years ago. While he was in office. It's only a matter now of how bad it gets. Sooner we arrest Trump, the better. Because we need to make an example of him to all of these would-be terrorists, to say, nope, America is becoming a different country now. Republicans are finally going to be held to account. Got to start. Or, it ends. Well, Symone Sanders did a great interview with Barbara McQuiad. Been a lot of talk, particularly on corporate media, which just can't wait to hack into a Democrat, about the Biden documents case and comparisons to the Trump documents case. The difference being a fender bender, which was an accident, versus vehicular manslaughter, which was, well, no, I take that back. Murdering with a vehicle, which was very intentional. That's Trump's side. Trump took not just classified documents. He took SCI documents. Classified is an umbrella term. It includes all kinds of documents that not just anybody can see. We don't know the details of the Biden documents, but we sure know what Trump took, and they include literally our most sensitive documents, at least that I am aware of, which includes SCI documents. That is to say, these documents can only be viewed in a room called a SCIF, which stands for a secure, compartmented information facility. When you work with SCI documents, you're not allowed to take them out of the SCIF. They live entirely in that room, and you can only work with them in that room. And that's that. Trump, somehow, we don't know how, by the way, took them out of that room, so somebody had to let him. We have questions for that person. Then he took him to Mar-a-Lago when he was not the president, also known as just some guy. Legally no different than if you took him or I took him. Except if you took him or I took him, we would not be under investigation. We would be in a basement with a bag over our head getting tased until we answered some pretty involved questions. That's what Trump took. What was the behavior with the documents? Let's be absolutely clear. We know about the Biden documents because Biden's team found them in an old office from his time as vice president, found them, contacted the National Archives, and returned them. That's why we know about the Biden documents. Why didn't we know about the Trump? Oh, excuse me. No. That's not why we know about them. That's what happened. We know about them because a Trump guy or somebody from the Trump guy's investigation leaked this information. So we know about this because of a leak. But the behavior was Biden found him, Biden took the initiative, Biden returned him. Why do we know about the Trump case? Because he got his home raided. And then he personally told us, the idiot that he is, why his home was getting raided. Why did he have to get his home raided? Well, because he didn't return them. The National Archives found that these documents were missing, contacted Trump. Trump tried to pass off a couple that he was handing back as all that he had. They said, no, there's more. There's a lot more, as a matter of fact. Got his home raided. Boxes and boxes and boxes were taken out. Then, after saying, that's definitely all of them, more were found to be missing. Then, there appears that there are still some unaccounted for. That's the Trump documents case. That alone should have him in prison right now. So you're most likely having a lot of friends and family that only get their news from corporate media, and they may be under the impression that these two people involved in politics acted equally badly, because that's the spin I've heard from corporate media, and it's insane. It's absolutely insane. Here's Symone Sanders and Barbara McQuiad talking some sense. Go figure.
Let me just start here, because this is the question I had. Did Merrick Garland need to appoint a special counsel? Was there a legal need here?
No. The regulations really give the Attorney General discretion to decide when it's appropriate to appoint a special counsel. It does task him with doing a preliminary check on the case to determine whether a special counsel is merited. And that is what he asked the U.S. Attorney in Chicago to do, a Trump appointee named John Lausch, who is carried over and continues to serve in this administration. And it was he who determined that he thought there was at least something to investigate here. And then Merrick Garland thought that in light of what he called an extraordinary circumstance, the fact that this is the president and his boss that has engaged in mishandling, we'll say, of documents, that he thought it was prudent to do this. I don't think it's legally required, but it is done to give a level of independence and public confidence in the investigation.
So, Barbara, you have been a U.S. attorney. Obviously, you're very familiar with the workings of the Justice Department. Would there ever be a conversation about whether or not there was concern around equating?
Actually,
around.
I gotta jump in because there is two things I want to say. Number one, first of all, Barbara McQuiad, she is indeed a former U.S. attorney from Michigan. I got to keep repping that state because all we have is like Kid Rock as our famous people, and that's an embarrassment. We got Eminem, I guess, but you know, he's getting long in the tooth. Yeah, Barbara McQuiad, former U.S. attorney from Michigan. Also, why Garland? Why a Trump appointee to review the case? I get. I don't agree with, but I understand why publicly you would rely on Trump attorneys. Sure. For some reason, this guy is convinced that MAGA folks will care at all about the facts. We'll look at him appointing a Trump guy to investigate it and say, I guess it's fair. No, they won't. They're maniacs. They are literally in a cult, folks. They're not going to give a damn about that. Why would you appoint a Trump guy to review this, to review whether a special counsel was necessary? What were you hoping he was going to say? No? No, we don't need a special counsel for this? The public wouldn't have heard anything about who this guy is. Public wouldn't care about who the guy reviewing the case is. Why would you put a Trump guy? You would only do that if you are still playing like Trump was a normal president. He wasn't. He put Jared Kushner. Jared, please pressure Qatar for me, stepdaddy, Kushner, in charge of finding peace in the Middle East. The guy used that, apparently, to get a deal on selling a building that he was underwater on. This guy is corrupt, in other words, and he hires corrupt people and expects corrupt activity from them. We need to seriously talk about being hired by Trump as a legitimate reason for getting your butt at a minimum reviewed, having your qualifications reviewed. Let's start with, are you actually what you said you were? Because the administration that hired you didn't do much checking. We're finding out. But certainly, if you're Merrick Garland, don't go out of your way to keep including these terrible people in your decision-making process. My God. Clown show.
This investigation being equated to President Trump's investigation? Or is the thought process inside the building when there are investigations happening, there's a silo over here and a silo over there?
Well, I think generally at lower levels, there are silos. You look at a case and you assess it based on its own facts, and you make a decision based on that case and that case alone. Although there is an effort to act with some uniformity so that you're treating like cases alike and different cases differently. But I think, as you have already hit on, Symone, some really important differences exist in this case. Both cases involve the mishandling of classified information, but there the similarities end. It is like comparing an accidental fender bender to driving your car intentionally into a crowd of people. What we know about the Biden documents is that he carelessly.
Okay. I did not realize she was going to use that analogy. To be fair, it's a really useful analogy for what these two cases are.
Mistakenly kept some documents at home. That is worth further investigation to find out why they were there and whether there is any damage to the intelligence community as a result. Maybe there's more evidence that suggests there is a crime. They'll find out. In the Trump instance, we know that not only did he have more than 300 classified documents, we know that he refused to give them back, even after the National Archives asked for more than 18 months. And that when he was served with a grand jury subpoena, he turned over a small envelope of documents and said, that's all there is. And in fact, there were 20 more boxes stored in the basement that they had to use a search warrant to get. Those are the kinds of aggravating factors that make one case prosecutable and another not. And so, of course, it will matter what the facts are that develop if additional factors come out in the Biden case. But as I see the two, the Trump case screams for prosecution, and the Biden case at the moment is nothing more than a whisper.
So before Symone moves on here, I just want to be clear. I'm fine with Biden getting investigated for this, by the way. I'm even thinking that the fact that we had a president taking documents out of the White House, classified documents to begin with, is worthy of an investigation into not just that president, but the process we have for keeping our national secrets effing secret. During the Cold War, we were something of a joke internationally for how badly we could hold on to a secret. Well, clearly, all you got to do is make nice with a former president, and you get like one of those EA mystery boxes. Click on it and see if you won a prize. The fact that we also had a former vice president have a bunch of classified documents as well, okay. We definitely need an investigation into the U.S.'s handling of classified documents generally. Not a criminal investigation necessarily, simply a look at our process, man. Like, this is not a good way to run a country. Thank God we have Gen Z being the first generation of young folks since, God help us, the boomers, actually paying attention to politics, actually getting serious about it. I love it. I apologize for my own part in my own generation, not following it close enough when we should have. It looks like, though, the cultural change is happening. And let's hear Symone bring it home in a wonderful way.
Do you think this puts any pressure on Jack Smith's investigation into President Trump, former President Trump?
I don't.
Oh.
I think each of these special counsels will take their job seriously, to be professional, follow the facts, and make the best decision they make. I'll tell you the one thing that sits in the back of my mind, though, Symone, is that Merrick Garland does know something we don't know, and that is
And what is that, Barbara? What is that?
Well, here's what I think it is. It's the likelihood of whether criminal charges are likely against Donald Trump. And so if they are likely against Donald Trump, then one thing you might want to do is appoint a special counsel in the Biden matter to make sure critics understand that we're basing decisions on facts and law and not politics. And so the fact that the Biden case happened doesn't make the Trump charges more or less likely to happen. But the fact that Garland named a special counsel makes me feel like he might know that charges are coming against Donald Trump.
Barbara McQuiad. All right, then. Well, I'll take your word for it, Barbara. I'll take your word for it.
Wow. So, first of all, I did not get that from the official MSNBC YouTube account. I did get it from a somebody that looks like they just aggregate other news. I saw that at the very, very end of the process putting up. But you know what? I don't see anything wrong with that particular channel. I'm not going to make a habit of that, but in the re-upload, I'll do the official MSNBC clip. Got some chat. Max says, 100%, that's why we have a Presidential Records Act. Fair. I do think our security needs to be a little bit... Okay, this is an understatement. Let me just try it again. Our security needs to be a lot tighter, because we have had this happen unnoticed a couple of times now. Rather, the documents left and we didn't know it for too long. Christopher Andrews says, hi, everybody. First of all, say hi to the man back. It boosts the stream as well. If you're enjoying the stream, I would very much appreciate a like, and, hey, consider subscribing. I enjoy doing this, trying to build it into a business. I would love to talk to more and more of you. Speaking of, this channel right now is a great example, the great microcosm for America right now and progressive activity in America. Any suggestion you make is definitely going to get read by me. And it will shape the way the channel looks going forward. Why? Because it's a new channel. So you're part of the select few that are the first watchers of it. And I'm delighted to have you. And you can run an experiment. Make suggestions for what you want this to be. And watch how much it affects the content I do, the delivery of the content. I have a new microphone because of a viewer suggestion. That is progressive America right now. And in that Barbara McQuiad interview, we finally saw corporate news expressing dissatisfaction with Garland. Now, we've seen this elsewhere, it's true, but it's been a recent development. It's because progressives don't take the opportunities they have a lot. In most of these streams, I have in the description contact information for your representative. When you hear about something like that, Barbara McQuiad says she thinks Garland might, maybe, be preparing to file charges. Remember that it has been years. And the fact that it has been years, and Merrick Garland knowing that the January 6th committee said, a long time ago they said this. This was part of their middle part of their hearings, that Trump was involved in a fake electors plot with many states. And that fake electors plot involved people who were on ballots for 2022 in many states. Merrick Garland, knowing this, did not get charges filed before the 2022 election. What's the result? Some people involved in the fake electors plot got elected. And now our government is being run by people who tried a coup. It's being run in part by people who tried a coup. Even if Merrick Garland does file charges, you should not trust him to file all the charges. Look in the description. If you are from a state that is one of the 5 states I've put in there, that is one of the 5 states known to have engaged in the fake electors plot, where they tried to swipe out the state's genuine votes with votes for Trump. If Garland actually even includes the fake electors plot in the charges he's going to file, there's no guarantee he's going to go after everybody involved in that plot. Go to your state attorney general. Treat it like you would this channel. You want this channel to be different? Guess what? I'm reliant on you. There's a good chance I'm going to do what you say. Assuming I think that it's representative of a large enough chunk of the potential audience that, so on and so forth. Your attorney general is no different. When Dana Nessel, the attorney general for Michigan, reopened, this happened rather recently, she reopened her state investigation into the fake electors plot, saying she would no longer wait for Merrick Garland's investigation into that. One of the reasons she cited was having to answer to her constituents. In other words, getting contacted by people saying, what the hell is going on? Why have you not done anything about this? That can be you. 5 states down there. They have no state investigation currently running into the fake elector plot. Only reason Georgia's not on that list, because they're, to my knowledge, I don't know if they are doing the fake elector plot. They're approaching it from a different direction. They're going for Trump directly through his pressure of Brad Raffensperger. But your state may have people that ought to be under arrest that simply aren't being investigated. So check and contact your AG if that is the case. Regardless, it might behoove you to pressure Garland through the DOJ contact link that I have also provided for the General Department of Justice, and simply let him know you're watching. Why is it? Note how concerned he is with public opinion. Right? Oh, I hate rhetorical right. Note how concerned the man is with public opinion. Why is it he's only concerned about MAGA's opinion? He ought to be concerned with your opinion. According to polls, you outnumber them massively. Sort of person who would listen to this stream, yes, outnumbers MAGA massively. But culturally, we're used to being quiet and polite, and we associate the two as being the same. They are not. You can politely, with tons of appropriate manners. You can politely contact the DOJ and say, do their mother effing job. You can politely do that. I recommend that you take advantage of that ability before the right takes it away. Well, it's not just your old pal Jake. It's not just you that's tired of waiting for Merrick Garland to do his job. It's also Trump. Mary Trump, the one sane person that I'm aware of in the Trump family, recently talked about this very issue, and man, she's spitting some fire. I thought I would share that with you. I like her podcast. Here it is.
Every once in a while, Merrick Garland breaks his silence to remind me why I hate him so much.
Well, I certainly
He called
hope it's
a
playing
press
for you.
conference yesterday afternoon, and no, it was not about the massive amounts of treason committed by Donald Trump and his allies. It wasn't about the thousands of stolen, top secret, and highly sensitive documents that Donald lied about having and refused to turn over to the Justice Department. It wasn't about Donald's role in inciting an insurrection against our government. Nope. It was about a few dozen documents that somebody found on one of Joe Biden's properties, which were immediately turned over to the National Archives. And as far as we can tell, that shouldn't have happened, of course, but as far as we can tell, there was no criminal intent, and there was actually no knowledge that these documents were there. As President Obama said, if these are records from the time Joe Biden was vice president, then they couldn't really have been that important. But Merrick Garland, in all his wisdom, decided that a special counsel needed to be appointed immediately.
Okay, so let me just pop myself back on screen here. So she's covering the same issue. I like where she's going with this, though, because she is finally discussing the flaws in that effing guy. Okay, I'm not good at the behind the back pointing, but here we go. We'll use the pen. Merrick Garland. I do note that if you don't have corporate money back in your show, and you are, in fact, Mary Trump doing this out of her living room, doing very well, or maybe office, I don't know or care. Point is, not a major studio. It's easier to say, ooh, the way things are ain't good. During our MLK show, this is what we talked about, just from a different perspective. But you'll note, we're getting to the same problem again and again and again. It's the fourth branch of government that nobody asked for. It's the corporations. They fund this nonsense. And there's if you enjoyed Glass Onion, very much about that, as well as the fact that we put too much faith in rich people. But yeah, they fund this. Merrick Garland hasn't had a lot of people publicly questioning him because a lot of people get their news only from people who really don't like to publicly question authority. Let's let Mary Trump nail this in a way I really enjoyed. Presuming I hit play.
I'm not entirely sure, but I think it took almost 2 years for him to do the same for the egregious and obvious crimes that Donald Trump committed. But this is what happens when Democrats continue to appoint or nominate what they consider consensus candidates to appeal to a moderate wing of the Republican Party that does not exist. Thanks, Merrick Garland.
Boom. Nice.
Have I mentioned I hate him? Recently, a U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commissioner warned about the potential dangers of gas stoves, particularly.
So, I kind of want to hear what she has to say about gas. I pulled this just for the Garland clip, but yeah, let me know in the comments if you want to do the gas stove things as well before we move on. Just want to highlight that. That's Mary Trump saying Garland is appealing to people that cannot be appealed to. The consensus candidates have been proven to be a failure time and time again. If we learn nothing from Trump, it is that in America, we don't really have swing voters. There's the percentage of people who vote and aren't quite sure if they're going to vote conservative or liberal. That's a very narrow group. And what we actually have, we have been misreading voter turnout for years. What we actually have is a base that does not turn out for middle of the road folks on either side. That's what we have. And these consensus candidates, all they do is ensure that it is harder to turn out the base of the left. The right has no interest in consensus. They're not interested in governing, frankly. They're interested in taking money out of America and putting it in their own pockets. So we need to make, and again, we do this by contacting our representatives. We need to make our representatives aware that this making nice with villains needs to stop. This compromising with evil. This is not minor ideological differences. This is, should we live under fascist rule or not? Should we have elections or not? That's serious. Had a viewer question. Oh, it's hilariously bad. I'd like to hear her take. Oh, heck yeah. Okay, excellent. Well, it looks like we have consensus. We do want to hear the gas stove thing. Excellent. We're going to do that. A real quick viewer question. Do I have an email? I am setting up a website now, which will have an email. But I don't currently. I'm wondering if I should give away my my personal email. The problem is I never check it, and I don't want it to seem like I'm ignoring you. If you leave a question in the stream or in the later VOD, I will certainly answer it. And yeah, if you have a question you'd like to send me tonight, you can send that to jakealexander313@yahoo.com. I will check it tonight, and I'll try to remember it exists tomorrow, and then I won't check it again for about a year. So that's jakealexander313@yahoo.com. I have had it since I was 16, but we will get an official email soon through a website. Let's listen to what Mary Trump has to say on the gas stove debacle.
To the brain development of young children and the fact that they may increase the risk of developing childhood asthma. Now, if you don't give a shit about children's brain development or whether or not they get asthma, then yes, as Ronnie Jackson suggests, we will have to pry the gas.
Okay, I thought she was going to say give a shit about glass stoves. No, I very much care about the asthma. Let's
stoves out of your cold, dead hands. But here's the thing. Nobody is trying to do that. It is just another way for the Republicans to get people angry and to get people to think that Democrats are coming for yet another one of their freedoms to destroy the environment and hurt other human beings.
Yeah, what it is, what has been proposed is not banning gas stoves. It's been simply, if you have an existing gas stove, funding the purchase of non-gas stoves. That's it. So, yeah, the government helps you buy a new stove. That's all they're doing.
In related news, Nick Adams, self-described alpha male. I just for a second, I have to concede that I don't actually think this is a real person. Part of me is convinced that this must be a parody account. I mean, who calls themselves an alpha male?
Right?
Well, oh, wait a second. Yeah, sometimes people do things like describe themselves in ways that nobody who actually had those characteristics ever would, like self-described smart person, Donald Trump. But Nick, who claims to be Donald Trump's favorite author, is on the warpath against the Mars company, which makes M&Ms because, and I don't know if this is true or not, but because M&Ms have packaged female M&Ms. And Nick
Oh, God.
only wants them to package.
I had so I don't tend to do this type of stuff as much. It's too weird not to let this finish, though. My God. Is this a genuine complaint this guy has? The lady M&Ms, really?
Male M&Ms. So he literally tweeted, "Not one M&M will pass my lips until Mars issues a formal apology and releases an all-male package of M&Ms to demonstrate their commitment to gender equality." So what this alpha male is saying is that he only wants males in his mouth? I don't know, Nick. You might want to rethink that one.
Hey, it could be a fun Saturday. Who's to say? Mary Trump's podcast, very, very humorous, and I do like that she cuts right to the point. This Merrick Garland's handling of any investigation involving people in power has been just a disgrace. Utterly disgraceful. To finish us up here, as our I guess we can call it our outro. Why is all this? Well, at first, I'd like to remind you what you can do about it. What you can do is contact the Department of Justice and let them know that they are not operating in stealth mode anymore. You don't have to rant. You just write a sentence saying, "It is time to hold Trump accountable." If you want to talk to your state attorney general about getting charges filed in a state investigation, or rather, not even charges, if you just want to start a state investigation to find out from the state side if the fake elector plot is what the January 6th committee says it was, there's a script in there for you. You can literally, if you want, you can just copy that, paste it into into the contact link that I've provided for you, and tell your attorney general that you'd like it pursued. You'd like it investigated. But why? Why is it so hard to get this done? Why is there so much resistance to justice if the powerful are the ones who are doing crimes? Well, if you're a fan of Princess Bride or My Dinner with Andre, or just generally humorous content in general, you'll be familiar with Wallace Shawn. Here he is reading a book that I think, or rather, he's reading a piece of text that I think describes well why all this exists.
Did you ever think of the utter absurdity and strangeness of the fact that all over the civilized world, the working classes are the poor classes? Go into any city in the world and get into a cab and ask the man to drive you where the working people live. He won't take you to where the fine houses are. He will take you, on the contrary, into the squalid quarters, the poorer quarters. Did you ever think how curious that is?
Yeah, curious, and frankly, it's heartbreaking. But that is the purpose of all this. It's to keep the rich rich and help them get richer, even knowing that their control over the majority of our wealth means there are kids that are going to not eat tonight. There's kids that are going to sleep on the street tonight. There's human beings who will suffer because of the disproportionate wealth distribution in our country. And somewhere, and if you want to start building bridges, I'm not in the mood for it, but if you're there, if you want to start building bridges with MAGA, somewhere there is an understanding throughout this country, throughout the political spectrum, that something is unfair about that. That understanding is getting expressed in healthy ways and unhealthy ways. Healthy ways, contacting representatives, marching out in the street, examining how we vote and why we voted that way. Those are all healthy ways. The unhealthy ways, taking shots at political candidates' doors, blaming everything on the ominous Jews and their space lasers. Hopefully, we will begin to transition, because most seem to understand this is not a sustainable way to live. We will begin to transition into a just society. And just like I'm enjoying building this channel with you, I'm looking forward to building this just society with you. And I hope that your input is part of both. To that end, we are doing the Citizen of the Day. If you do contact one of these people, if you contact your representative, or if you contact your state attorney general, or if you just contact the Department of Justice, if you take any of these steps, let me know in the comments. Because I want to start holding up people as examples of people who are getting off their butt and doing something about this. This is what you can do. I'm proud to know you. I'm proud to be here talking to you. And I will be tomorrow as well. I hope you'll join us for that show. And by the way, it's 2 for Tuesday. That means I'll do another show in a little bit. And it won't be as good. But I will do one. I hope to see you then. I hope to see you tomorrow. Thanks for joining us.
You can tell that I make it look easy. It's a cheat code. It's a free throw. If it's so illegal, you can tell that I make it look easy. It's a cheat code. It's a free throw. If it's so illegal, yeah.
The game is strategic, I'm bobbing and weaving. Don't argue with demons, okay? Okay. Ain't nothing between us, vacation on Venus. I mean it, I'm somewhere you ain't, okay? I feel like I'm Jordan when I turn the mic on a dangerous cycle. I make you a rival, I pray for the title. We making the finals, I pray we don't spiral, I pray we don't. I wrote out the vision, been focusing winning. Don't try to guess me, you